Hi, and welcome to the Terrain Kickers podcast for our YouTube channel here. And in this reasonably short video, I just want to share at least some of my excitement because I record a lot of videos here related to, as the video said, Old World. So just today, I was teaching someone Imperialis today, and my pre-order from one of my local game stores came in, so I was able to pick up this big old hefty box, and we'll talk about that in a moment, as well as the Ravening Hordes book and the separate Tomb Kings book. I forget exactly what they're calling it, but essentially the one that gives you some more fluff and two different style army lists in it. So I thought what I would do in this video is just share a little bit of my thoughts on the game as well as I've read it so far. What I will say is we have not actually went through and played it yet. We've read the rules. We've been discussing it in our one group. We have, a couple hundred messages a day talking about it. But I don't know if any of us have actually sat down to do it. I do believe Dan is playing his first game this week. I actually probably will be as well, but I'm going to play it a little bit different way, and I'll explain that. I want to talk about the first list on building, just thoughts on it, just all of that as sort of a precursor before. Honestly, much of it's in my hands. Actually, you can't actually see on this, but I haven't even cracked the seals on it. I have read through the book. I had a separate copy that I was reading through for a while, so I do know a decent amount of the rules, or as best as anyone can until they've read the book 10 times. But I have gone through that a bit, so I am a little more familiar than this on this sealed box will say. Haven't opened yet to see if there's anything weird about it, but if so, the store will be able to help me out with that. So a little bit of background for myself. In terms of fantasy, I really started fantasy mostly in 8th edition. I had looked at it a little bit before that here and there, but I never actually had an army in previous editions, so I was aware of the game. I knew overall basically how it played, at least at that time, the way I believe it played, but I didn't actually really sit down to get through it until I got into 8th. My main army in 8th was Ogre Kingdoms, at later part of 8th, I would say. It was actually an army that Dan had. He hadn't painted anything of it yet because at the point contrast wasn't out, so it took him a while, much longer to paint things. And he decided he didn't want that. He wanted to go to, what was he going to? He was going to Lizardmen, actually, thinking about it. His choice was to go to Lizardmen. So I decided to buy him some Lizardmen stuff so I could to essentially get his Ogre Kingdoms army. I painted up, I don't know, probably 20 or so Iron Guts, 40 or so Bulls, at least a cannon, 6 or so Morn Fangs, a whole bunch of stuff, a Stonehorn, tons and tons of an army there. Played it quite a few times. I also used my demons that I had in both 40k as well as fantasy, and then I thought about working on collecting some other armies, and then the world got blown up. I will say this one. We are all very big fans of fantasy. However, we also are not people who think that Age of Sigmar is like the worst thing ever. I think Age of Sigmar is a perfectly fine game. I don't play it very much. I'm not necessarily very huge on it. And maybe that's more of the army that I play. Just, not really meshing with that play style. But overall, it's not that it's a bad game. More than one type of game can exist in the world. I completely understand anyone who is angry about what happened to Old World, essentially to original Warhammer Fantasy when it got destroyed, because that could have been your absolute love of a game. They get rid of it, and then, let's face it, they kind of put joke rules in to begin with. But the game now, the lore, all the things around it, has actually been fleshed out. It's a real thing now. So, if you don't like it, I completely understand. I understand why you may never play it. But if you like it as well, the world's big enough for both things to exist. So that's really more my thing. Now, when it came to 8th edition, there was absolutely huge problems with 8th edition, magic being the biggest thing. Giant, chunky blocks of infantry, 30, 40 or more dwarfs, in a 5 by 10 grid. Problems that I had. I do remember one game where we were playing sort of a really big game, like Apocalypse sort of level, because the store owner at Maplewood Hobby has lots and lots of orcs and goblins as well as vampires as well. I think he was using his vampire stuff. It might have been a combination of both. We were playing a giant game, probably 5,000-6,000 points at least per side, so a couple people together on both things. And he got Purple Sun. I'm pretty sure we were doing 4 dice death, which was the standard at the time. For anyone who doesn't know, in Old Fantasy, essentially, you would naturally get 6 dice, essentially towards your spells. There's ways to increase or decrease and things like that, but essentially you could have up to, these theoretical 6 dice or more and all that. So what a lot of things did is for death magic, they limit you to 4 dice. So you can never roll more than 4 dice on a spell. The reason you would do that is because the more dice you roll, if you got a double 6 or more 6s, but if you got at least 2 double 6s, it was irresistible. The spell went off. You could do nothing to spell it. Doesn't matter what you do. The spell goes off. Death had some of the strongest magic. One of them was what's called Purple Sun. So Purple Sun put a large blast template down on the field. I forget how far away it's from the person, but it doesn't matter. And you would essentially pick a direction and scatter, and it would move along that direction. And any models, not units, models that it goes over would take an initiative test. So they had to roll their initiative or less. Otherwise, remove from play. Ogres are initiative 2. They are monstrous infantry. They were 3 wounds each, at least at the time. I haven't looked at the new stuff. They're probably similar, but I don't personally know. So the whole idea in ogres is that you have a lot less of them, but they're worth at least 3 infantry for each of them because of how many wounds they have and all that sort of stuff. So they're big, tough, and burly. So if you have a spell that just removes them on a fail, means you're essentially moving multiple infantry for every one of those that you remove. The other key feature is that a spell can't stop in a unit. So if the spell hits your unit, it pops out the other side, which means if there's not room between your regiments to fit the 5-inch template, it just goes straight down the line, which it did to me. I want to say of the, let's say, 3,000 points I had out there, I was left with probably 500-600 points when the spell was done, because you only on 1 and 3 got to keep pretty much any of my models. So I lost most of my army. We still had a fun game and all, but there was very big feel bads, I feel, in 8th. It's not that it was a bad edition, but it had some problems. Everything that I've read related to the new edition, everything I've seen other people talk about, as well as their own general impressions, are that this edition, the giant box down, probably a little bit a combination of 6th, 8th, and somewhere in between, or maybe a little 7th, however you want to go through that. People who've played 100 games of fantasy could tell you exactly all of that. What I will say, though, is I like everything that I see. I really do. I think what they've done in some ways is a nice streamline from some of the chunk that was useless. I think the game is a little bit longer or maybe slower intentionally in a very good way. So things tend to not be nearly as destructive. Spells, magic is not nearly as destructive. The amount of attacks your units gets tends to be lower. The output that they have tends to be lower. Survivability, maybe it's a little bit better. Your survivability is probably better because people aren't doing as much to you, kind of things. Overall, in certain ways, survivability is worse because ward saves really seem to be a lot harder to get. They're not all over the place. The fixes to strikes first and strikes last, the fact that they just put you to I1 or I10. So they just fix your initiative. It used to be strikes first goes before everything. Then you take a look at initiatives and things like that. Elves had strikes first, so elves would always swing first. There's chances you could lose tons and tons of stuff before you even have a chance. Now strikes first sets your initiative to 10, and then modifiers come in. So there's some potential play around and viability. If you have something like a great weapon that puts you at strikes last, it's now initiative 1. It's not that you always go last. You go to initiative 1, but then modifiers. There's modifiers related to your charging. So if you're charging, you get pluses to your initiative, which means that your great weapon might swing before some other things. This is especially important for people like me who want to play Tomb Kings, because we're essentially initiative 2 in most ways. That means if we actually get the charge, we might actually be going before you. So that's a nice facet. It feels like initiative matters, especially because there's no more step up. So as you destroy models from the front rank, you lose attacks because the back ranks don't auto fill in and get the swing. They technically do fill in, but if you fill in, you're not swinging and everything like that. So personally, I feel like they fixed a lot of the problems that I felt with 8th. They cleaned it up probably a little bit closer to 6th, like I said, with quality of life improvements. That's not to say this game, it can't be intimidating with the amount of stuff in it, the amount of rules, the amount of little special cases. I do enjoy how in the rulebook they try to cover all of that. Here's a little special case. So related to movement, because anytime you have a rank and flank game, movement is both very important and can get cumbersome. It can be really important to talk about, well, what about this sort of weird fringe case? And they've pretty much covered those. They now, you can be close to your allies. It used to be you had to be an inch away from enemies as well as your allied units. You had weird things about being able to rotate near them and all. Now, you can't walk over your friendly units, but you can rotate through them. If there's a little bit of clip on the corner, that's fine. Oh, the board edge is not the end of the world. You got to clip over it to kind of reposition. That's fine. Just don't end there. They did things that are both logical and just improve the play experience. It is absolutely a feel bad to realize that you are locked from certain charges because due to your other units being by, you push this one unit a little too far forward and now you get in their way, can't even attempt anything. And, oh, you put yourself too close, you can't even wheel away because you'll overlap that region you weren't allowed to. That's been removed. They really cleaned up a lot of the things that you can do to really make this edition feel a lot of fun. So I also have the Ravening Hordes. I've been starting to go through this. So this has all the evil non-PDF factions in it. They also have one for the Forces of Good. Right now I'm doing Tomb Kings. The other army that I'm taking a look at would be Orcs and Goblins, because I do have some Cruel Boys. So I'm actually going to use some conversions for those. Some, I believe, I forget if they're what size base they're on, but essentially 32 to 30s or 25 round to 25 square type converters. There's a lot of trays out there. Different companies make them, but I have a 3D printer, so I'm printing my own trays for those. So that way I can put those different factions in here. So since I already have a bunch of orcs, I want to get some goblins or goblin proxies and things like that. For my Tomb Guard, I'll tell you right now, I'm using Mortec Guard. I'm using Mortec Guard because I think these models look great. I kind of want Osiarch Bone Reapers. I kind of always wanted them, so I can sprinkle these guys in. Same thing, I'm going to sprinkle them in for some of my horses and some other stuff like that, and do some count as stuff. So I said these guys will be Tomb Guard. So at initial thoughts, I think everything really looks good. I reserve final judgments so we sit down and play, but everything I've also watched game-wise does look good. What I thought I would go through then, very briefly for anyone who's interested, is to talk a little bit about first army list. So what I'm going to be building for these guys to start off with and why I'm making some of those selections. Now, what I will say is I'm not a competitive player in this kind of stuff. I don't ever plan on being a competitive player, personally. That doesn't mean I'm going to make necessarily bad choices, but I'm going to play the things that sound cool to me, and especially early on, I'm going to play the stuff that I want to paint up, the stuff I have access to. I'm not going to worry about, like, you might see someone who's played tons of fantasy is going to look at this list and say, we don't have a BSB. My first list doesn't have one. It's a very simple reason. I don't have a BSB model. I'm going to get one. I'm going to build up to one. I don't know if I'm going to get an official one. I don't know if I'm going to print off a really nice counts as sort of look of type proxy. I don't know if I'm going to find one in, like I said, that Bone Reaper line, the Osiarch Bone Reapers line that I want to call my BSB. But I just currently don't own one. So you know what? I'm going to build my first list with that one. And then as soon as I have one, I'll swap it in. So some of this is just out of necessity. Now, the starter box gets you, without magic, probably close to 1,200. With some magic that I put in, got me a little bit closer to 13, maybe 1,350. So I'm looking at a Tomb King. I went for the high levels Tomb King and High Priest. I know you can take some lesser ones. I don't want to take any lesser, at least to begin with. For him, obviously he's got environment. I did put a shield on him because he does have a hand weapon, so he can use the shield on the way in case that's ever necessary, or if in case I'm really worried about in combat that I want him to use that instead. Otherwise, he has, where is it? There we go. Well, no. There it is, because it's under the Tomb King special stuff. There is some general equipment that I think would be really nice, but, hey, I'm playing Tomb Kings. Let's use some Tomb King stuff. That was my goal of literally all of this, is to start with some Tomb King stuff. So, for that, I took the Crook and Flail of Radiance for these things. There it is. It's your strength at AP -1. It's extra attacks D3. It's magic attacks two-handed. But the important part is strikes first. We tend to go late. And since we go late, since we don't tend to have very good initiatives, I want something that can get some damage into someone ahead of time. Whether he's in a challenge, and honestly, I don't really want to challenge with him, so I want to make sure there's a champion there to take it instead. I want him hitting to the normal unit to be able to get some damage down on people. I mean, he's initiative 4, So strikes first, now he's going to pretty much go before most things. Once he gets to that 10 and maybe modified, he has that nice weapon skill 6. He's got 4 attacks. So getting those extra attacks means that he can really start putting out some damage onto people. I also gave him Crown of Kings. Crown of Kings lets him make a leadership test. If so, he gets to take a unit skeleton warriors, archers, horsemen, or horse archers within his command range and recover D3 plus 1 wounds. Tomb King's special abilities are that we are undead, we cannot run, or we cannot march, I should say, not run, we cannot march. But we do have a variety of other things. So we count as, let me get to the actual thing so I can make sure I say all the right things. We cause fear. We're immune to psychology, so we don't take fear tests and things like that. We're unbreakable, so we don't just get wrecked from combat. But we're unstable, so when we lose combats, we start losing models. So we're never going to flee and get caught. We're just going to start falling apart. So I wanted to put the Crown of Kings on him to start healing some stuff back. For my High Priest, I obviously made him a level 4. I'm going to test out Necromancy first. I don't know which lore I want. I'm back and forth on which one. I do think I'm going to swap out one of the spells, whatever I end up rolling, so he'll get to roll 4 spells. The Lore Nekahara, the Incantation of Desiccation, or the Incantation of Cursed Blades, I think are the 2 that I like. I don't know which one I'll swap out. Depends on the spell. But I do think I'm going to swap something. For anyone who doesn't know, Desiccation, it's a hex, 10 to cast, 15-inch range, until the end of this turn. So that individual turn, you target enemy unit, it's -1 to its strength and toughness to a minimum of 1. If you have another hex on it and you cast this, the other hex goes away. So -1 strength, -1 toughness means some of our units that don't have the greatest strength are really going to start getting through people, and when they don't have the greatest toughness, it's going to be tougher for you to get through us. The Cursed Blades, it's an enchantment, cast value 7, range self, until the start of your next turn subphase. Start of turn subphase, the next time you have one. And if you're in a unit that has a Nekaharan undead special rule that's wholly within the caster's command range, rerolls to hit rolls of 1. This is especially good as I start varying up units and start taking some of these big chunky boys, which I do have here. That's a really good spell if you can be close to them as well. Otherwise, I just gave them a Heretic Jar, or Hieratic Jar. Hieratic Jar, it's single use. You can't be in combat to use it. You can decide to use this jar. The bearer can attempt to resurrect units by the Arise special rule twice. So what High Priests do is they get to bring units or models back. It goes through the rules for this. So for the Arise, it essentially says depending on the type of unit, you have to be within 12 and all. You recover wounds, but it depends on your type. If you are regular infantry, heavy infantry, or swarms, you get wizard level plus D3, so that's 4 plus D3. If you're light cav, heavy cav, or beast, you get the wizard level plus 1, so 5. If you're monsters infantry, monsters cav, or light cav, you get the wizard level. If you're heavy chariot, monsters infantry, behemoth, or war machines, you get a single wound back. Normally you could do it once per turn. This means once per game. I can do it twice. So you can't be in combat during it, and it's a leadership check. He is leadership 8, so not perfect, but at least especially you could use it on the turn when you miss it and you really need it. You need warriors. You're required to take them, so I took 2 squads of 20 each because there's 40 warriors sitting in this giant box right next to me. I'm giving them spears. I don't know if I'm going to keep it that way. I haven't truly decided. They're not built yet, but I'm giving them spears and light armor and shield, and they have their shields, of course. I like the idea. I don't care about the phalanx rule. Phalanx means that unless they outnumber you by 2 to 1, if they push you back, if you're to give ground, you don't give ground. That's fine. Just not really caring about it. I'm giving them champions. I'm giving them standard bearers. I'm not giving them musicians. I don't think musicians are super important for Tomb Kings, what they do. Yes, it helps you win if there's a tie, but if both sides are musician, then that doesn't matter. And the other parts of it are things that we don't really do. So I'm not worried about those. There is 32 archers in the box, so I took 32 archers. I took them base. No special leadership, no light armor. If they're getting to your archers, they're gone anyway. 3 chariots. Again, I'm not putting musicians in, at least for the moment. And they do have all the weapons, even though the builder doesn't quite show that. For anyone who doesn't know, this is Old World Builder all dashes in between .com. I'll put it in the show notes. This and for New Recruit are really good builders for this. This one looks nicer. New Recruit gives more information. So it's a little bit different. Apologies if you could hear that. Our fridge, the fan inside, our fridge is only about 2 years old, but the fan inside apparently is going. And we're having someone come out in the morning to look at it and fix it. But it was making super loud sounds for a while. I plugged it back, unplugged it back in and fixed it for a while. And it decided now it no longer wanted to be fixed. So it got real loud again. Where we are? Okay, we're looking at the archers. The chariots. I do want more chariots. I absolutely love chariots. I said right now, no one's got special banners, but there might be some special banners I take. I just want to start very simple. I want to get used to the game, the movement, the characteristics, all of that before I worry about throwing all kinds of extra stuff on people. That's just the way I prefer to learn. I like to start with very few extras, tons of things, get used to them, and then pull back and figure out what I like and what I don't. There are 16 horsemen. I do believe you can build them both ways. So I'm taking 8 skeleton horsemen and 8 horse archers. The horsemen I gave spears and made sure they had some light armor because they want to get into combat. Did I give them... Oh, and I gave them countercharge as well. I don't know if it's showing there. There it is. I gave them countercharge as well. For the horse archers, nothing special. Again, I'm trying to keep them nice and cheap. They do have the chariot runners special rule. So I did make sure they have that. So that's sort of the core box. For things I added in, like I said, I do currently have models I'm counting as Tomb Guard. I'm using those Mortec Guard. I was able to fit a squad of 11 into this. I did give them a champion. I didn't give them a banner. I'll probably give them a banner and swap someone else down, but just for the moment I have it. I'm still going back and forth on all this. Currently halberds, I might actually... No, actually it makes more sense. I'm going to switch them back to hand weapons, just thinking about it, and that way I can give them a banner. It makes more sense because if you look at their rules, they have Kopesh, and Kopesh on their hand weapons means that they're AP -1. So that's actually really useful. Plus they have Cleaving Blow. Yeah, and Kopesh. So yeah, actually, I realized I don't want them with halberds. I might still build the models with halberds though, because I like the look better. I have a bunch of them. Actually, I have like 40 of the guys to build, so I'll probably do 20 and 20. Reality-wise, this is probably where I put my Tomb King. The unit's a little bit small, so I might put him with warriors otherwise to start, but I want him in a unit Tomb Guard. I like that more. The High Priest, I didn't say it's on Necklace Bone Dragon, because the Bone Dragon's in the box. For other things I'm adding some Tomb Scorpions. I'm adding Tomb Scorpions because I have Tomb Scorpions done. That's legitimately the reason why I want Tomb Scorpions in there. Because I have 2 really nice counts as. They're on really cool looking bases. All of my models like that I got from One Page Rules. They have STL files, so I bought some of their collections. And I've been printing those out. So those are some of the ones that essentially you can't get otherwise. So that way I can actually run some of these other things. And honestly, I really do like the look of them. Weapon-wise, I'm going to pay a little more attention of which one is which. I might try one with the other, just to kind of get a feel for what I wanted to actually have. But I currently have 2 of them, so I put 2 of them in. Same reason I put 2 Necklace Colossus. I have 2 of them. And since I have 2 of them, I'm going to run them. Again, these actually came from One Page Rules. I really do like them. I think they're really great looking models. I just finished printing off their bases, so the hope is to test a little bit of some color schemes and stuff like that and get those guys together very soon. These guys have tons and tons of rules, but they look good, and I kind of like big monsters. So where I'm going from here, things I want to be doing, I want to get more of my Tomb Guard together. I want a Necrosphinx. I absolutely want to grab a Royal Herald, because they could be my BSB. So get a Royal Herald, turn them to a BSB. I'll probably drop, I don't know, maybe one of these Colossus for that, or maybe remove some skeletons or something like that, or the archers. Maybe I don't have to use them all the time. Haven't decided what I'm going to change for 2K. My assumption is we're going to be starting at 2K for quite a while, then we might go up from there, but I want to build for 2K. For standards, I want Sacred Eye, because standard Sacred Eye, it's 50 points. You get +1 to your weapon skill for that unit. and I want that in a big old chunky block of Tomb Guard with my Tomb King. And I think that unit is going to do quite a bit of good, especially with the High Priest, maybe lowering people's strength and toughness. Now, extra weapon skill. So get them to like that weapon skill 4 then, with decent strength versus their really bad toughness, because they're not going to have a good toughness then. I really like that. I think that really plays really well. Those are the main things. I'm also working on some Mushapti, so I want to be able to work them into my list as well. For other options, I just don't currently have them. I will be expanding out into that. Painting scheme, it's skeletons and skeleton type things. I haven't decided exactly how white or yellow I want to go with that. Do I want to do like a bleached bone, off bone colors, all of that? I'm not sure. My bases actually are the mortuary bases that One Page Rules did. So they look like, Egyptian hieroglyphics and stuff like that on the ground. I haven't decided that color scheme. As soon as I get that color scheme, that'll tell me exactly how I want to paint the guys themselves and all like that. So, and any filigree that they have. I haven't decided like a tomb that they come from for that. So, overall, I know I'm very excited. I know Dan's very excited. I think Steve is building up some Chaos Dwarves and all. So I know all of us, we will be getting some battle reports and all related to this game. So we'll be putting some of that out. We're not going to be stopping other content that we do, but you will see some of this start cropping up that we're going to do as well. It's going to be a bit before I have my stuff together. I know Dan has his. I know some other players in our local have it. Maybe it's not all painted, but we're probably going to try to get some stuff to the table, so at least we can test some things out. We'll probably record some of it so we can kind of just, show off our sort of thoughts and how things are going, and people can kind of learn along with us. For myself, I probably will be playing this weekend first for anyone interested. So this will be the weekend from, let me take a look at the date. I think it's the 2nd to the 4th. He says, 2nd to the 4th of February, that there is in Woodbridge, New Jersey, a board game convention / there's miniatures as well. Level Up is the people who are putting it on. If you look them up on Facebook or on the internet, you'll find it. It's Level Up. And I'm going to be going to that. And I know one of the things I signed up for is Old World. They're doing some, learn to play and show off and stuff like that. They're going to have armies to lend. So I'm actually going to go over there and have one of them, try to play the game a little bit, get a better feel for it, really, try it out, since it's going to be a little while until my army is ready to go. I'm going to be there if anyone's interested, if anyone lives in the local area towards where I am. Like I said, in New Jersey, it's in Woodbridge. I, as well as my wife, will probably be there most of the weekend, playing various board games, some miniature stuff, RPGs, all of that. It sounds like fun. I can't say how the convention will be. So if you go and it ends up not being great, I don't know anything about it. It's the first time I think they've done it in the winter like this. It's really close to me. And my hope is it's good. And I would like to support it, even if it's not perfect, because then that way it improves, gets better, and gets bigger. So that's how I plan on spending my weekend. So I'll be looking at this until then, but I won't get a whole lot of building and painting done. So it's going to take me a couple of weeks to get through this. All right, expect probably in maybe another week or so a deeper dive from us going through the rules and discussing them in more detail. Especially once we all have gotten a game under our belts, or at least Dan and I. I know Steve's doing as well, but I don't know the time frame for him. But we'll be doing that as well. As always, let us know in comments the sort of content you want to see related to either this, other games, anything like that. Currently, I have 2 more Imperialis battle reports that I'm currently editing. I will be editing one you should see out by weekend. It might be the 4th one recorded. The 3rd one's going to take me more time. We had some issues during it. And it's just, you'll see why, but that one will take me a little longer, so you might see that. And then we should hopefully be, probably not this week, but the week after, be recording some more battle reports related to that, or maybe Old World or something else. If you want to see something particular, let us know. We want to make whatever content it is that people like to see, because we enjoy, honestly, personally, I just enjoy everything. One other quick thing I want to say, if you're currently a Conquest player, absolutely keep playing Conquest. I'm going to. This is not replacing Conquest to me. This is in addition to that. I rank and flank games. Conquest to me, comparatively, I know it's not skirmish, but it feels a little more skirmishy, where this feels like a very large block, and I like them both for very different reasons. Conquest is still one of my favorite games. It is still one of the primary games I play. Between that and Imperialis, they're my main 2 games. This, maybe it'll get up there. I don't know. But currently, if you're standing there and you ask me what game I want to play, I'm going to go back and forth between Conquest and Imperialis. Currently, this is third, but we're going to see if it can push into a little bit higher into those rankings as we go along. I might at one point do a video comparing the two and kind of talking about your ranks and flanks games, that and other ones out there as well. But that belabors all these points well enough, so you'll see a few other things from us this week. Otherwise, on behalf of everyone here at the show, has a good hobby and some great gaming.